put on my other hat now that says I'm a candidate for U.S. Senate. Did you guys all get a little card? Who has one? Just hold it up so I can show the rest. Okay. If you did not get one of these, please on your way out, grab one or raise your hand. This fine gentleman, his name is Jeff. He will bring you one. Just raise your hand and Jeff will bring you one. And to also let you know, I have a petition. First, I gotta earn your right. But first, let me just tell you where it is. I have a petition at the front desk. Meryl has the petition right there. I need signatures. So if you like what I say, if you are and I are in agreement as to where this country is, where we need to go, and how do we get there, if you and I are in agreement, I would appreciate the favor of signing that petition. It doesn't mean you're going to vote for me. And you don't have to vote for me. It just simply means that you want another option on the ballot of my name being available should you decide to vote for me in June. Freedom, right? We want the options. And that's what that petition allows for. Are we ready for my political speech?
Yes. We're ready.
Yes, sir.
That's to get on the ballot. You need to be a registered Republican.
Or unaffiliated.
Right.
You could be unaffiliated or a Republican in order to sign that petition. If you're affiliated as anything other than unaffiliated or Republican, she has a form to affiliate you. She really does. So you can be affiliated today.
Is an affiliation, it's not unaffiliated.
Yeah, if you know for sure you're independent, that's not unaffiliated. If you are unaffiliated, that's different than independent. But anything you want, you can become Republican. She has the form to make you a Republican and forgive you of all your other sins. Right over there, she takes good care of you. Okay, let's put aside my silliness. Silly hour is over.
We like a sense of humor.
Just a little. You got it. Otherwise, I'll have a heart attack before I'm 44. Okay. Well, let me thank you for inviting me here today. And as much as you want to know about me, I want to know about you. I want to know what your views are and what your concerns are. I want to know what issues are important to you. So perhaps tonight, before you and I go home, we'll learn a little bit about each other. That's important because I want to not only talk, I also want to listen afterwards. I'm not your typical candidate. I'm not your typical anything because I've never run for office before. I'm new to politics. I've spent my life in business and academia. Something in my eye. I've never envisioned myself running for office, nonetheless a major federal office. So this is something that I launched on the 20th of February when I announced that I will be running to seek the Republican nomination for the United States Senate. Why? Because I am passionate about this country. I am passionate about the great nation that I live in, that I call home. And just like you, I can't just sit by and wait for someone else to get up and do something. I have decided that someone has to be me. Because if not me, then who? And when my kids ask, what were you doing, Dad, as this country was going down, then you know what? I could at least say I wasn't sitting on the couch and waiting for someone else. I want to get up and try to do my part. I stand before you today because I'm a doer, not a complainer. And that's important, because as a citizen representative, in Washington, I will tackle and deal with the difficult issues that are facing our nation. And on top of that list has to be jobs. No credible candidate running for federal office could ask or expect your vote unless they have a decent plan to create jobs in America at this time. And in my 20 years as a small business owner-operator, I have learned a thing or two about what kind of an environment we must have in order to create jobs. And what I will do in Washington, I'll make sure that job creation will be my job one. In order to create jobs in the U.S., we need to instill confidence. Right now, the business world is not feeling that confident with our current administration. As your senator, the very first thing I will do, before my booty touches that big chair, the very first thing I will do is I will vote to repeal that unconstitutional Menendez Obamacare. We should be able to purchase insurance across state lines. In all my years, thank you. In all my years in business, I've learned the best way to lower the price of anything is that C word. What's that C word? Competition. We also need to lower taxes. We also need to lower taxes in order for us to be globally competitive. We need to lower the corporate tax rate. Right now it's at 35%, the highest in the world. I propose to bring it down to 15% for 5 years. Not 1 year, because business doesn't operate on a 1-year calendar. Business looks 5 years before they make any investment. So lower the corporate tax rate to 15% for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, look at it again. If we still keep moving, if the economy still needs it, renew it for 3 more years. But if the economy is good, raise it up to 20% maximum so we can compete with other nations. The other thing we must do is allow American companies to repatriate their foreign profit back to the United States. There's $2 trillion of American profit money overseas. They don't want to bring it back because they don't want to pay 35% on it. They didn't earn it in the U.S., so they're just leaving it overseas. Let them bring it in. I propose one condition. Let them spend 5% of the amount on new hires or capital improvements. That's a whole lot cheaper than 35 or 15% or whatever. And it'll actually benefit their bottom line as well. So that will help. The other thing we also need to do is simplify the tax code. 7,500-page tax code. People look for every possible loophole. I support a flat tax. 15% is what I'd love to see that. Maybe we can negotiate a little bit, but I'd like to see it around 15%. I believe that will support the economy. In order to help create jobs, we also need to rein in overregulation. Because right now we see that the EPA and other federal agencies are circumventing Congress, unconstitutionally circumventing Congress. Yeah. We do need to protect the environment, don't get me wrong, but we cannot use that as an excuse to surrender our rights to the United Nations. And that's exactly what happened. We must also work on lowering the cost of energy in order for our companies to be competitive. We must be competitive by figuring how to extract more oil domestically by allowing more permits for private and federal lands, by also working towards not only oil but natural gas in the United States, and also I will support the Keystone XL pipeline. I have no idea why they're not. It's political, I'm sure. There's something else I believe is a potential for us. It's called gasification. Anyone heard of it?
Yes.
Garbage and coal gasification. It could easily save us in the future. We're burying all this garbage in the ground. If we use the process of gasification of that garbage, turn it into energy, now we got rid of the garbage, save the environment, and got electricity. It's a win-win-win. We need to look at alternatives. In order to also create jobs, we need to improve education. We need to make sure we're training for emerging markets, rather than importing workers who've been trained overseas in various fields. I would support eliminating the Department of Education. Absolutely. In the spirit of the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, I would take all that and bring it back to the states. That's where it belongs.
How about the energy department? What would you do there?
Absolutely. I would cut them down drastically, and I would have no problem with auditing the Fed. Auditing the Fed. Enormous amount of questionable issues going on with the Fed. I would also, in order to create jobs, balance the budget. We need a balanced budget in order to instill confidence, not only in our own business, but also international markets, so we can regain our AAA rating. But someone needs to tell Menendez and Harry Reid to first pass a budget. They haven't in 1,040 days. They haven't even passed the budget.
Minor point.
Yeah, it's just a little issue. Who's counting?
Yeah.
That way they don't have to count the money.
In order to create jobs, we also need to instill discipline in our Congress, and I believe to do that, we need to pass term limits. Do we agree on that? 2 terms for Senate, 6 terms for members of the House, total equal 12 years. 12 years is more than enough.
How about the Supreme Court?
The Supreme Court, well, I actually got a partner here for the Supreme Court. I'm going to piss off everybody, don't you worry, Paul. That's not on film, is it? Sorry. I think I had like I don't know, Lucky Charms or something for breakfast this morning. Okay, besides term limits, we also need immigration reform. Absolutely. And I am the only candidate, I can say that in front of the camera without worries. I am the only candidate for U.S. Senate with my own, I authored my own and copyrighted my own immigration reform plan that has been well received by members of the Latino community and by Republicans. So, what does that mean? That means I can actually chip away at Menendez's base. Menendez cannot win re-election without the Latino community. Can you agree with that?
Yes.
If I can chip away at his base, I have a chance of taking away the base of Menendez, and I have what they believe to be an impossibility, we made possible. Because we can take away the support of Menendez. My immigration reform plan is pretty straightforward. It's not amnesty. And it's not a pathway to citizenship. Rather, what it requires is a secure border. Because you can't do anything else. And Ronald Reagan, we love Ronald Reagan, but he made a mistake. Can we agree?
Yes.
As much as we love the gentleman, he made a mistake. He gave amnesty and left the door open. So, close the border, and then we can deal with the 11 to 18 million that are currently in the United States. There's 2 sides of this. Some believe that we should round them all up and get rid of them. The other side believes leave the door open and give them amnesty. Well, guess what? I'm sorry to say, but neither extreme is doable. Somewhere in between, there has to be a practical solution. Can we agree? And my immigration reform plan is that something. If they do not follow the plan, or if they deviate from the plan, or if they're criminals, then they will be deported. That aspect stays. They register, pay a fine for fingerprinting, pay a fine for being photographed, fill out an application, and pay a 10-year weekly fine for 10 years. For 10 years, they pay a weekly fine, get to the back of the line, and after 10 years, during those 10 years, they can work and get, pay taxes and get a check and everything. At the end of those 10 years, then they qualify for the next step. If they've been behaving, they apply for a green card.
Barack Obama has made deals with the countries that these people are from, guaranteeing them jobs and money to send back to their countries. What would you do about that?
Well, I got a message for Barack Obama, man. 4 and no more.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So Barack Hussein Obama can take his deal with him. And for Bob Menendez, I say Ryder or U-Haul. So they're both getting out. Hasta la vista is exactly right. Okay. Now, this is near and dear to my heart, this next part of what I believe we must do. I will also work hard to protect American sovereignty by upholding the Constitution, securing our borders, and not surrendering our rights to the United Nations.
Yes.
I agree with President Abraham Lincoln when he said, someone asked about judges, we, the people, are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but rather to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution. So I am in favor of something similar to what we have, the 3 strikes you're out rule for criminals. Something similar to that for judges. If a judge gets overturned on appeal 3 times for something that was unconstitutional, I believe that judge should also be replaced.
What about the Second Amendment?
The right to bear arms?
Yes.
That is so easy. It clearly says you have every right to own and bear arms. There should be no interpretation.
What about the Castle Doctrine?
The what doctrine?
Castle.
Help me out, refresh my memory.
Being allowed to defend yourself in your own home without having the
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. You should have every right to defend yourself in your own home. Someone intrudes, you absolutely should have every right. That's called the Castle Doctrine. I will look into that, so next time I'm asked, I will be familiar with it.
What about the right to carry?
That's the bear part. I believe the Constitution addressed that. I am not here to rewrite the Second Amendment. I'm here to simply support it. Unequivocally support the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Now, our founding fathers, why did they do that? Well, let me go through this part, because it'll answer why our founding fathers did that. We must never forget that the First Amendment guarantees that the government should stay out of our houses of worship. We are guaranteed freedom of speech, press, and the freedom to peacefully assemble. We will never give up our right to petition our government. That's very important. We must always hold dear to that. We must also never forget that the Second Amendment is equally as important. To take away guns from law-abiding citizens only empowers the criminals and emboldens the government against the citizenry.
Yes.
And that's the important part. So if you guys just let me go through this thing, I'll answer all those points. That's all right. We must never forget that we have a Fourth Amendment. We cannot allow the government to strip us of our constitutional rights in the name of security. You know what the Fourth Amendment is, right? Okay. As your senator, I would have voted against the current National Defense Authorization. We must demand strict adherence to the 10th Amendment to give power back to the states. I would support block granting of many federal programs back to the states, not only to increase the quality and to reduce waste, but also to save taxpayer dollars. That's very important. This administration, to say the least, has been a disgrace in our relations with Israel. I would support the only stable democracy in the Middle East. I agree with President George W. Bush when he said, America will never seek a permission slip to defend our security. Why should Israel? We must be a friend to a friend in her hour of need. We must allow Israel to defend itself. I truly believe that Israel has the right to exist in peace and prosperity. I also believe that Israel has an equal right to defense and security. As a sovereign nation, Israel should not ask anyone for permission to defend itself. Israel does not need anyone's permission to exist. I'll say again, as your senator, I will defend and protect the only stable democracy in the Middle East. On the personal side, I was not born in America. I came to the United States in 1976. I was naturalized U.S. citizen in 1994 along with my parents. As a proud American, I stand before you because I refuse to sit and be silent. We have much work ahead of us. These challenges will only strengthen us. We must work together for the good of our country. It is not about red states or blue states. It must always be about the United States. It's not about party. It must always be about country. And that's important. I am determined to do my part to defend liberty. Are you with me?
Yes.
Oh, you guys are sleeping already? Are you with me? Yes. That's important. Because I need you. Because I cannot do this alone. A conservative cannot win unless conservatives vote. Did that just make sense? Yes. I need you. And that's very important that you need to get out and vote. I humbly ask for your support. We are in the fight of our lives. Together, we can win and reclaim America and give our children the great nation that our parents gave us. And that's what this is all about. Faith, family, and country. That's what my running for U.S. Senate is all about. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate it. God bless you. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain why why you prefer the flat tax over the fair tax? Because with a flat tax, you would still have people working, you know, under the table and
Yes.
not paying any tax at all?
Well, let me tell you, if it ended up with a fair tax, I would support that. I believe they're both wonderful ideas. I would support a fair tax or a flat tax, either one, or I would support the combination of both, like Herman Cain had. How many of you like the 999? Okay, something like a fair tax / flat tax, or 15% just flat tax. Some variation of that is a whole lot better than the mess we have right now. Could we agree on that?
Yes.
People ask me, they say, hey Bader, if you're going to go into the Senate, you're going to have to learn to negotiate. Are you willing to negotiate?
No.
I'm willing to negotiate on a percentage, perhaps. I'm willing to negotiate, do we cut 1 trillion or 1.1 trillion? I'm willing to negotiate how long before we pay off the debt. But some things, I'll never negotiate on.
With a fair tax,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
would get rid of the IRS.
Yes, ma'am.
So.
But the flat tax, you would reduce the IRS by probably 90%. With the fair tax, you still wouldn't get rid of the IRS completely because you still have to audit businesses. Because the tax is paid through businesses. So even with the fair tax, if I may, you still need the IRS. So that little snake that we call the IRS, we still gonna have to have it, but just a smaller one.
Mayor, what would you do about the entitlement?
I believe we need major entitlement reform. For example, if anyone's familiar with the food stamp program,
Yes.
many people need it, many people deserve it, and it should be there for those who do need it and deserve it, like the elderly, the handicapped, the disabled. I'm not heartless, not to take it away from people who truly deserve it. But I believe we could all agree that there's an enormous amount of waste in that program. For example, you can get Red Bull $5 energy drink can on food stamps. You can get $4.99 Haagen-Dazs ice cream on food stamps. You can get bags of chips, candy, soda. You can get all of that on food stamps. Rather than the administration telling us we can't have this and we can't have that with our own money, why is it allowed to be purchased with taxpayers' money on food stamps? We definitely need to entitlement reform.
Look at that woman that won that million, and she
That's
didn't
right.
think she didn't think she had to stop the
That's right.
food stamps. I mean, she had to pay for 2 houses.
Well, the good news is now she lost her food stamps. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there were testimony in the last week where the people in the food stamp program have been investigating and finding out people are selling their food
Yes,
stamps.
sir.
25-50% off,
Mhm.
and the buyers have restaurant fees and buy
Correct.
food,
Yeah.
and they'll take the cash for whatever alcohol
Yeah.
drugs. So it's like all these programs that they get abused.
Yeah, I believe that you could get around that by limiting the licensing of food stamp merchants. One thing to go, I mean,
They discussed that, and they said, oh, well, yeah, that's very difficult because sometimes it's the only place in the neighborhood, and, your typical argument.
yeah. I've lived my whole life in the food business, so they're not telling me anything I didn't spend 20 years working in myself.
Well, I'm just saying what
Yeah.
they're saying in the
Yeah, it's just a hogwash.
Well,
they
I didn't
can-
say one hogwash, I
yeah.
mean, that's what that's.
They can certainly do it, they just need to go, they can really have to apply themselves more to it.
I'd like to add something to the
Yes, ma'am.
food stamp
Yes, ma'am.
discussion, and that is that right now the Obama administration is willing to give out $75,000 grants to people who can come up with ways to get more people on food stamps.
I've heard of that.
Did you hear the ad on the radio last week? I heard it last week. Sign up for food stamps. This little old lady's
Yeah.
voice says, I can afford fruit and things that are good for me that I couldn't afford. Oh my God, flour.
Well, why do you think that's the case? Why do you think that's the case? There's an expansion of food stamps.
Flour and
He wants to get everybody under his thumb.
I don't know if you mentioned, there was a $5 million bonus paid to Oregon for signing up food stamping. Go, you know the message that sends? Sign up people for food stamps, you get a bonus. What? People on Wall Street don't get bonuses, shouldn't get bonuses, but people who sign up people for food stamps.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's insane.
There was just a report in the last week, because of that woman that got the food stamps, Florida and Michigan are starting to have laws in their legislature to limit what they can and cannot buy. And there was pro and con on both.
You know, it has to be done, of course, you know, with a degree of wits about it. It can't, you know, just, you know, blindly cut. It has to be certain, like the sugar aspect that I was saying before with brand ice cream. You know, you got Haagen-Dazs being $4 when you have a no-name brand, ShopRite brand at $1.99. When you and I go shopping, we're sometimes not able to afford the most expensive. We end up buying the ShopRite brand, but if I'm on the food stamp program, who cares? And that ends up being the problem. The gentleman, yes, sir.
You talked about jobs. What about different ways to bring manufacturing back to this country?
Great idea.
It's killed us.
Absolutely.
In Mexico.
Absolutely.
They went to China. What about tax credits for companies that bring jobs back from foreign countries into labor areas where there's factories?
Absolutely. I would support Rick Santorum's idea of tax-free for X number of years on American manufacturing for American factories. I would support that for X number of years. It can't be open-ended until but first, we really need to deal with China and China's unfair treatment and their manipulation of the dollar and their manipulation of their own currency and their copyright infringements in China. And it's not just on this side, there's also a great deal on that side.
What about right to work laws? We have 23 states that have adopted it.
I would fully support right to work.
Unfortunately, in 1947, under Truman, they put together this law where the states had to opt out rather than opt in. And there is a law that's been or a bill that's been introduced in Congress to reverse this 47 Act so that each individual state doesn't have to opt out. Would you support that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a union member. I'm a card-carrying, dues-paying union member. That surprises some people. Usually the whole room goes, what did you just say? It's almost like I cussed. Sometimes it's easier when I do cuss. At least when I cuss, I get a laugh.
That's pretty much cussing.
But I support a person's constitutional right to join a union. But I also support a person's equal constitutional right not to join a union should they not want to join.
Yeah, private unions are fine.
Private.
The public unions really are.
Yeah.
Well, even Roosevelt said that you can't have public unions.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, ma'am?
I commend you on your positions and on your presentation on Sharia law and everything tonight. Got a nitty-gritty question. You are up against a tremendously formidable opponent in Senator Menendez. He is,
yes, ma'am.
He is the head of the Senate Democratic Committee. He's got the purse strings in his hand.
Yes, ma'am.
He could command hundreds of millions of dollars if he wants to into his campaign. You're also up against Joe Carrillos,
yes, ma'am.
who's not a conservative. We
No,
all
ma'am.
know there's no illusions about that, but he is supported by all the mainline Republicans.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your strategy realistically, and I know you have at least two other gentlemen plus Anna Little, and what is your strategy to win this nomination?
It's a very good question. Let me answer it this way. Yeah, Anna Little dropped out.
When did that happen?
She
2
dropped
days
out?
ago? Saturday she dropped out. She's going
Good
to,
strategy.
she's
Well,
going to
third-
Cologne.
this is the third office that she was running for, and she said that's not the charm.
Yeah, I can't, unfortunately, I can't speak on Anna Little's wise, but I can say it's down to myself, Joe Carrillos, Joe Rullo, and a new name, Ed something, I can't pronounce.
It's
Soswell?
Zawiya. It's SZA.
Ed S.
Yeah.
And the winner of that primary will go against Menendez. I believe the strongest individual I have to worry about is Joe Carrillos. I'm not overly worried that Joe Carrillos got endorsed by Christie. Because you may remember our great governor endorsed California governor, what was her name, Whitman?
Meg Whitman?
Meg Whitman? Did she win?
No.
Okay. Our great governor endorsed someone else. Who was it that didn't win either?
Florida, Chris?
A few others that he stood behind and did not do well.
So it's
Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was 25 points in the favorability before Christie endorsed him, and then afterwards he was still 25. So I believe Christie is a major powerhouse as far as Christie is concerned, but you can't take someone who isn't a Christie and make him a Christie just because Christie endorses him. Did that just make sense?
Yes.
Joe Carrillos will still be Joe Carrillos. I'm not overly worried because Joe Carrillos is an establishment. He's a career politician. I'm not a career politician. I am a citizen representative. I bring business sense to the table, common sense, business experience to the table. Joe Carrillos has also a 20-year experience in New Jersey politics, which also means he's a part of New Jersey's 20-year history of a problem. The same person can't possibly be a part of Washington's solution. We cannot send the same people to do the same job and expect different results. We all know what that's called. And I have an immigration reform plan, which, as I said earlier, will chip away at some of Menendez's support. Joe Carrillos doesn't. Joe Carrillos cannot beat Bob Menendez, but I can. That's a key difference. I believe Joe Carrillos is being ready for possibly a run for the governorship. Building up his name in the Senate race could possibly benefit him, not in the Senate race, but get him prepped for a gubernatorial race in a couple of years to take over Christie's, if Christie goes on to a federal position. So we cannot sacrifice New Jersey just because for someone's political gains.
I understand that. You say a lot of great things, but the problem is that Carrillos has $4 or $5 million already. What kind of war chest do you have for that?
Not $4 or $5 million. You're absolutely right. But the difference is this. I'm the type of guy, and from my own experience thus far, I can make a dime look like a dollar. When my wife tells me the toothpaste tube is empty, I get 3 more days out of it. It's the truth. I'm not trying to be comical. It's the truth. I know how to shop around. I know how to get the cheapest product. For example, that card that you have in your hands, that little card right there, on average, everyone at that thing on Saturday on that forum had something similar. They paid 68 to 75 cents a card. I paid 3.5 cents. I could make my dime look like a dollar.
I understand that, but we just came off an election.
Yes, sir.
And we worked harder than anyone else, and we cut every corner you can cut. And the bottom line is, they spent $740,000 to $145,000.
Yeah.
You can't beat that money when it's on TV.
No, you're absolutely right.
And they're going to come out on TV, and you're not going to beat that money. So you got to have a plan, or we're just...
Absolutely. I do have a plan. And a part of my plan is to get support from the Latino community, the Arab community, and the Jewish community. I already have an enormous amount of support from the Jewish community. I've actually been written on, not just in the U.S., but in Israel. Articles about my campaign have been written and published in Israel about my campaign. Here in New Jersey, you have New Jersey Jewish News had me on the cover, and on page 10 and 11, I believe. Also, Jewish Opinions and Jewish News and Opinion had me introduction on the cover, and then on page 13 or whatever, with a nice 4-page spread, as a matter of fact. My goal is this.
You're not running in Israel, you're running here.
No, this is in New Jersey. Okay. Only one was in Israel, 2 were in New Jersey. But don't forget, a lot of American Jews also have close readership connection to Israel. And if they hear that this guy's being talked about in Israel, they know that something is important. But the important thing is, I have a relationship with the Arab community, the Christian Arab community, and getting endorsements in the next several weeks will be essential from the Arab clergy, the Arab Christian clergy, the Jewish rabbis here in New Jersey, and also from the Latino community. I'm not expecting multi-millions. I think I have to be realistic. But when endorsements come in from the NRA and other entities that say, hey, this is the guy. The other guy, yeah, he may have Christie on his side, but he has a C rating by the NRA. So the NRA is not going to give it to him. The right to life. He's not even backed by the right to life. Carrillos we're talking about now, where I'm actually being considered by the right to life for an endorsement and things of such. So these things will, once they come in, and we're still early in the game, don't get me wrong, we'll bring endorsements, we'll bring contributions and donations. That's something that you could also help with. Not just sign a petition, take a card and tell a friend, but also you can volunteer, you can host a house party. And bring, a dozen friends to your home. Invite me, I'll come to the house. We could use it as a fundraiser of $100, $150 per person. We can turn house parties informative, educational, and fundraisers. Because when a voter meets a candidate, they have a much higher chance of voting for that candidate. Because they've touched flesh to flesh, made the eye contact, and it's a whole lot stronger relationship. So I'm looking at this as a personal relationship. Certainly, I cannot shake 150,000 hands. And that's what you need to win the primary, about 150,000 votes in the primary. So in order to do that, you certainly need money. But we have also social networking, college campuses with the young Republicans. We're getting out there. We're working this thing, without a doubt. Oh, trust me, we're working this thing.
You've referenced the Constitution many times tonight.
Yes.
What is your understanding of Barack Obama's eligibility to be in the office that he now occupies?
Yeah, I think we heard earlier about an investigation by the Arizona sheriff. I think we need to learn from this particular example that we have. We need to make it mandatory for federal candidates, including myself, to undergo a stage 1 background check. I am willing to subject myself to a FBI background check. And if that's the case, I don't think we would be having the discussion.
Okay, a follow-up to that. If you get elected to the U.S. Senate and
Yes,
Barack
sir.
Obama wins another term,
Yes,
what would you do as a U.S. Senator?
In reference to his eligibility, well, if there's I think there's currently a discussion of a bill being floated right now to demand evidence of his citizenship. If that's the case, I would certainly support that. Would I author such a bill? Is that your question? Would I author a bill?
I mean, many of us here have had experience for almost 4 years with our representatives and senators doing absolutely nothing in spite of the massive amount of evidence to suggest that he's unconstitutionally in that office.
Yeah.
And essentially nothing's been done on a federal level and nothing's been done on a state level.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah, I think there's been that political correctness aspect. They want to take that political correctness aspect. I would not shy away from a bill if it looks like from the sheriff's investigation that certificate was a fraud. I would not shy away from a bill, sponsoring a bill to demand actual hard copy of the real birth certificate.
So your understanding of the qualifications to be in that office is simply that he be born on U.S. soil?
No, you're also referencing natural born citizen aspect, are you not?
Right.
Yeah. And the natural born citizen aspect, talking about his father also being a citizen. Is that what you're referencing?
Right.
No, I'm fully aware of what you're saying. I'm just trying not to answer it in a way that would suggest that I automatically know the facts of his birth certificate. I don't know the facts.
Right.
And I can't suggest that I do know the facts. And that would be just as misleading you as telling you what you want to hear. But I do believe if evidence comes up forward with the investigation from the Arizona sheriff that certificate is a fraud, then it certainly needs to go into an investigation, and it certainly needs a bill to show that certificate, the original. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, will you state for the record what constitutes a natural-born citizen of the United States?
My understanding is that the father has to also be a citizen.
In addition to being born in country?
That is my understanding. But I'm no constitutional scholar. But that is my understanding. Yes, sir.
As a freshman senator from New Jersey,
Yes, sir.
what would be your pathway to implement term limits?
To implement term limits. So there's two possible ways, from what I understand. A 3/4 vote by members of Congress or by states. And I believe that if you have a 3/4 vote, you could do it without a constitutional convention. Without a constitutional convention. And that is the preferred way. Because a lot of people worry about a constitutional convention opening up the doors for things that others may bring into the convention that was not intended for. But if you have a 3/4 vote by the states, then you don't need a convention.
Can I follow that up?
Yes, of course.
Just introducing something like that's going to go nowhere. I mean, this has been talked about for a long time.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's the wolf guarding the hen house.
You're absolutely right.
How are you going to get all the peers in Congress to reach that 3/4 vote?
I believe that's where not just members of the Senate are powerful, because there really aren't, there's only 100 of them, right? But that's where your power comes into play. Let's see if you agree with me. First,